All right, everyone. Welcome to the Corporation Township of Mapleton Council meeting for Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. If you are able, please stand for Roll Canada. Thank you. As you notice here, I'm flanked by the CEO and the clerk, and we have two council members here. We are down one council member. And we do have Councillor Amanda, you're online. I can almost see you. You're like this big in the corner of a picture. That's so Amanda is online for us. She's not feeling well, so she's staying at home, keeping us all safe. And so, Amanda, when you have questions, please just raise your hand, wave, and the clerk is going to make sure that I'm aware that you have a question.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. First up on the order is we do have a presentation to do, and we're going to do this right away. There's a presentation of a trophy for the Safety Truck Rodeo. And before we give away this trophy, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie. Jamie, you want to give us an idea of what this truck rodeo is all about?
Thank you, Mayor Davison and Council. Each September, Wellington County and the member municipalities gather and set up an obstacle course with the plow trucks, and just so everybody can show their skills and their talents and what great drivers we have. So over the last couple of years, we've hosted it here in Mapleton because we do have the Mapleton Public Works Building and the Wellington County Public Works Building in the same location, and we got lots of area to maneuver. And I wasn't personally there this year, and so but we were well represented, and so I'll leave it to you to do the presentation to the champion.
Thank you, Jamie. And the champion, of course, is one of our Mapleton Township drivers, Claude Hergott. Claude, please come up here, receive this trophy for your excellence in driving techniques. And council, please come to the front and we'll get a photo done. And we do appreciate the staff that we have and knowing that we have the best plow driver in the county. That's great to know that our roads are well covered, and all of our staff are excellent out there. I know I've talked about them today. I did a radio interview today, and I talked about how our staff, and when we don't have them plowing snow in wintertime, they find other great work that need to be done in the community, and always keep them busy. And we really appreciate our outdoor staff when they would do the work outside that we desperately need done. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? I don't see any. Thank you. We're going to do a confirmation of minutes. Resolution 4.1 moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Ottens, that township, or the minutes of the Township Mapleland Council meeting held on October 8th, 2024 be confirmed as circulated in the agenda. Any comments? All in favor? It's carried. We have no matters arising from the minutes or under the Planning Act. We'll go right to delegations. First one up is Tyler Whale. Tyler is from Biodiffusion Technologies, Inc. Tyler, please take the podium, hit the red button, and tell us why you're here.
Thank you very much, and I will try to be as brief as possible with a story that's taken more than 20 years to develop. Mayor Davidson and council chamber, council members, thank you very much for the time today. What we have, and I don't need to go through this presentation, I'll leave it with you. It's, again, it's too long to really deal with much other than getting to the crux of the matter. We are a company that creates a 100% plant-based bioresin. It's kind of like liquefied emulsified tar, if you will, but renewable. It's used in road applications, and the goal or the intention of the company is to make roads more affordable, better performing, and of course, greener. I've got a few show and tell pieces. So and I've had the pleasure of talking to Jamie Morgan a few times about this. We have done applications commercially. The closest one would have been 8th Line. So the recent work this year on 8th Line with Center Wellington. We did a 6-inch base stabilization on a road that has difficulty with base based on the traffic that it gets. And so this is an example of what it does to the base. It glues gravel together so that when you put your wearing course on top, whatever that may be, it deflects less and it lasts longer. So either you have the option of reducing the thickness of your wearing course, which again, there's a lot of science behind this. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not a road engineer, but you can reduce the thickness or you can increase the longevity of the wearing course. Now, recent discussions with many experts and attending Good Roads conferences, you realize too that there are a lot of options for changing your road strategy, and that would be to employ things like chip seal in a more aggressive manner. In fact, one of our road engineers who's world renowned, he said, I would have put chip seal on that 8th Line instead of 100 millimeters of asphalt. Lots of rationale. Again, happy to discuss that over time. I brought a sample of the resin. If you have interest in seeing what it looks like, I can pass that around. This, by the way, is 50% recycled asphalt. That's another thing we've been, that's the gravel. So the 50% recycled asphalt is something that we've been working with Dufferin Construction on for the past 2 years. Again, you have an asset, it's asphalt. If you're able to recycle it more readily into your roads, you have cheaper roads, and again, things that perform better while capturing carbon. So these technologies are available to you. My request to you is that you consider doing a trial. Again, we have trialed in Center Wellington, Puss Lynch, North Dundas, Quinte West. We have conversations ongoing with dozens of municipalities around Ontario. We have trialed in the United States successfully. On high wrap asphalts and other applications like pothole repair. We simply need to get the word out there that there is an alternative, and it is intended again to improve the performance and the longevity and cost of your roads, as well as, again, a greener alternative. So with that, I'll leave it open to questions, and hopefully that's enough to generate some interest. And again, Jamie, I look forward to further conversations with you over time.
Well, thank you, Tyler. Certainly, you know, as you know, the way the weather patterns are and how roads are heaving a little bit differently than they once did.
Sure.
You know, looking at alternatives is something that, you know, at the county level, we've done, and we've done some work at the county level. And I know that some of the townships, talking to the other mayors, they've also done some work. And we just know that it's important to be looking at alternatives to what we have been doing in the past to make our roads longer. Last longer than what we do, because it's expensive getting roads done. Questions from members of council then on this? Go ahead, Councillor Ottens.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So you said you recycle pavement to make this? So would you use the road that's currently there and recycle that pavement back into this product?
Correct. To clarify, we don't make asphalt, we don't recycle anything. We provide an ingredient that road building companies will use. So we'll work with the Coxes, the Norjons, the Walkers, the GIPs, et cetera, and have done so over the course of the past couple of years. But it enables them to use your asset in a more purposeful manner. So you're not using recycled asphalt for just oil-covered gravel or something like that, spreading it on roads without binding it together. So again, many applications are useful for rural roads as well. Having lived on a farm and driven the heavy manure tanks down the roads, I know that it wrecks things. I mean, it is hard on road infrastructure, especially when there's no spring load restrictions on a milk truck or whatever, for example. So like I said, this is just offering strategies that you can consider, that your public works department can consider. And again, hopefully there's a bright future for both the company and this opportunity.
Thank you. Further questions? Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The part that I enjoyed out of the PowerPoint presentation was the basic economic slide. Like, not only is it green, but it actually has a business case as well as far as the economics go, right? Which I think is an important factor for anyone when we're talking about a product like this, right? Like, I know the goal is green, but like, it can be expensive depending on what type of technology you're looking to employ. So this seems to make a lot of sense.
Appreciate the comment, Mike. The reality is roads are really hard to measure and every road is different. But green has to be number 4 on our priority list, unfortunately. Price, process, and performance. Those are the first 3 things that are key. So you've identified that green is a factor, but it is our 4th most important factor, because recognizing that budgets aren't inflating and the cost of everything is going up. I heard in Center Wellington gravel was 100% inflated over pre-pandemic levels. So I'm glad you caught that, and indeed there is an economic argument for this. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you. And thank you very much for your presentation, Tyler.
Very good.
We leave that in our public works good hands. A resolution moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Martin, that Township Mapleton Council receive for information the delegation of Tyler Whale, Biodiffusion Technologies, Inc. regarding Meat Biodiffusion Technologies, Inc. All in favor? Sorry, Councillor Reid, I didn't look up. I'll have to try to look up if you have a question. Sorry about that. The next up, we do have another delegation. This is from Tullamore Lavender. And we do welcome Stephanie, come on. Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me. Good afternoon. So I'm Stephanie. Someone asked me where I was from, born and raised here. Actually, the farm that we farm on is where I was born. Well, I wasn't born on the farm, but you know what I mean. So we have a small scale lavender farm. It was established in 2020, and last year was our first year open to the public for our bloom, which is in June and July. We plan on being open for agritourism every summer for many years to come. I do want to start off with a thanks to the council, as we did receive CIP funding in 2023, which enabled us to open up to the public. There's a lot of infrastructure that's required to be able to welcome people onto a farm, so I do want to acknowledge that funding and thank you for it. As part of our opening year, we hosted a Lavender Bloom Festival. So I'm here today to tell you a little bit about that and make a request for some funding. It was a wonderful success, and I'm really excited that we're going to be offering it again next year. So it's actually an event that's co-hosted by myself and Market Events, which is a vendor-based event company. They're out of Guelph, Ontario. And for both of us, this is a real flagship event for our calendars. So this one-day event celebrates the start of our lavender season and the start of summer, and of course brings together a community of people who are interested in lavender, but also in broad topics like wellness, gardening, art, culture, and a real base interest that we realized is that people are interested in experiencing an authentic rural landscape and an authentic farm. It's a ticketed event. Children enter for free. And last year, our day or ticket holders had access to 4 free workshops, farm tours, 5 live entertainment acts, face painting, mini photos, a yoga session in the lavender fields, and 50 vendors to shop from. We found that people came because it was the first year, kind of just looking for a day of entertainment, but they really were able to access or experience a lot of genuine joy. And I think that's part of being connected to the land and connected to agriculture, and also all of the things that we offered around that. People were genuinely just so happy to be there. And we will be hosting again in 2025 on June 28th. Next slide, please. So we actually had over 800 people on the farm property. And this is a little bit of breakdown about who attended, but I wanted to note that there was some economic buying power that came. So 130 of the people who entered or who came actually entered in a giveaway. So you had to purchase from 3 vendors to enter to get this free item. So people were coming to the region, but they were coming to spend. And that's a key, I think, point to make. Next slide, please. Another really important piece of data, which made me really rethink about how we are marketing this event, is it really is a tourism-based event. Of the people who came, the majority, or 85%, came from over 40 kilometers away. So this was really about a destination and about people coming to this region and coming to Mapleton. So it's a unique opportunity to showcase our beautiful communities to people who live in Hamilton, Kitchener, Waterloo. We actually even had a bus of 40 people. They rented their own bus to come from Toronto. So there was a real interest in coming to the community. Next slide, please. So of course, when you go to plan a new event or the next year, you look back on the previous year and lessons learned. There's a couple things that we need to do as adaptions for 2025. One of those is having a more proper water station for attendees, having more workshop spots because we basically booked those up almost right away. And then of course, more staff and volunteers to support the experience. Because I am who I am, I immediately started looking for funding opportunities to help support this. And as you know, Mapleton doesn't actually have tourism funding at this time, and CIP does not cover events. At the county level, there also are no grant opportunities. Everything seems to be having or needs to be offered at the municipal or the local level. So I actually found a really great example in neighboring Centre Wellington that I'd like to propose to you, and I'll show in the next slide. So there are 2 places I want to showcase, or 2 items. First of all, Centre Wellington provides a tourism marketing fund of $500 for event organizers. This is specifically to attract people from over 40 kilometers away to come to the region and to the event. So this would be used to market the event. For us, this would enable us to shift some of our marketing dollars and put that towards staffing or workshops. Next slide, please. Another interesting thing that they provide is an actual water cart. So this is like a water station where you would refill your reusable water bottle. You often see those at music festivals. They have their own. I actually tried to rent it last year, and I also went to the city of Guelph because they also have a water vehicle or water station. Neither of them would let me rent it because I am a Mapleton resident. And when I went to go actually book one to see if I could purchase one for the day, it's $1,000 just to rent it. With Centre Wellington, there's a nominal booking fee. It's $225. So they're essentially giving their event organizers a $775 value in providing this water cart. Next slide, please. So I'm asking council today to please consider providing funding to the 2025 Lavender Bloom Festival, specifically in alignment with what the neighboring Centre Wellington Township does. I'm coming to you because I do think it's a really unique opportunity from a tourism perspective for the township. And I also think that there's likely other people in the township who would benefit from funding like this to promote and create great opportunities for people locally, but also to bring and attract new people to our region. I'm asking for $500 for event marketing, as well as $550 for a water station. I think I can probably put together something that is safe and appropriate without renting an official water cart through like Culligan water bottles and a tent and things. So that's why that dollar amount doesn't quite match up with what I've just presented. But this is my official request for support, both for myself, but for other people who have unique ideas that could provide tourism opportunities for the region. Next slide. So thank you for your consideration. Hopefully you have lots of questions and I can answer them about either the event, the farm, or my funding request. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie. I know I was at your event and it surprised me when I pulled into your lane that I had to move over for the bus coming out. So when I got there and I saw all the automobiles and the people, I went, wow. You know, for your first time out, that was an amazing event you had on, and the number of vendors you had there as well, the tents, everyone. It was just quite incredible what you did in the first year. So congratulations on that.
Thank you, Mayor Davidson.
Questions then for Stephanie on this, on the festival and the request for funding? Go ahead.
This is not specific to you. I just wonder, since we don't have this sort of funding in our, sorry, through you, Mayor. Forgot the official stuff. We don't have this as part of our budget. Does the county have something like this, tourism funding grants or anything like that? Because,
Sorry, in my research and reaching out to their economic development staff, the only support that they provide is posting the event on their website and promoting through the Taste Real program. There's no financial supports or water carts or anything like that.
no, I mean, we run a festival as well, so if there was funding, I probably would have found it by now.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your presentation today. Your pictures are always beautiful, both today and always when your festival comes up. I think you have one of the what am I trying to say? You have one of the farms that'll probably actually smell good. So that's you're in a lucky in a unique position there. As far as the request for funding goes, I think the timing is good, as in we're just starting, you'll see in this agenda, to talk about the 2025 budget conversation and what that looks like. I probably won't be supportive of just like an ad hoc request, but if like we want to contemplate what a tourism funding looks like, not just for yourself, but possibly for others, I think this could be a very good and opportune time to have those conversations. And, you know, you provided examples of what Center Wellington does, and I think this could be an opportunity for council and the cash man over there to see what that could look like for Mapleton specifically. So in that context, I think it's worth a consideration and a conversation about what that could look like from a kind of a wholesome municipal standpoint. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks to Larry and to Amy for helping me line up this, because I do know your budget conversations are happening. And that is a strategic request for not only myself, but for other individuals. Because I do think that there's a lot of creative individuals and unique settings to bring people to Mapleton. It's about helping people like myself and being able to access and do that in the best way possible.
Thank you, Councillor Reid.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I apologize for my voice ahead of time. I just wanted to say, Stephanie, thank you for your presentation. I appreciated the information. I do agree kind of with Councillor Martin in it is a good timing thought to have right now to put forth to our treasurer to see if that is something that we can consider for the future for not just your festival, but other ones that we have around us, because there are some wonderful festivals that are put on in Mapleton. Something I was wondering if you've considered partnering at all with any of our local service groups to see if they would do sponsorship for something like the water or other needs that you have that are kind of like a sponsorship opportunity to your event. And then my second question was, you said $500 towards marketing. So what did you use for marketing in the last, I guess your first event that you held last year?
Just clarification, like what was the budget for marketing?
Yeah, did you just use Facebook? Did you have the same budget? Are you increasing your budget to kind of reach out to more people?
Sure, I can speak generally. I think around, like, let's say strict marketing, not including, printing for posters, was about $800 to $1,000. The primary marketing for that was through Facebook and Instagram. My counterpart, Market Events, is the one that really leads that. And I think for us, it would be about doing a little bit more. But perhaps it would be also enable us to shift around some funding so we could help give like volunteers an honorarium or something. So it would help us do a little bit more shifting in our budget. Because we had a lot of really good success, and the benefit of being the second year is you have a great, list of people who are already converted and you can contact them. So I think we could probably hit that goal of having about 1,000 people on the farm with a similar or slightly more in the marketing budget. But yeah, it's more, I think it would enable us to do some other creative things with the funds and the budgets that we've set aside. And the service groups. I have not approached any service groups. I have approached a couple of companies about potentially being sponsors, so local companies. And those are just conversations we're having now. I haven't approached any service groups because I often view them as people who are already doing a lot of things. We all are, I guess. But it's certainly something I could consider about sponsorship. And see if those people are interested in participating in that way. And one thing would be if we did receive support from Mapleton, we would certainly, for example, like you could put signage up on the water station saying, Mapleton's a great place to live. Here's great water or something. Like, obviously, of something clearly much more clever than that. But you know what I mean.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any further questions?
No.
All right, thank you very much for your delegation.
Thank you for having me.
Resolution moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Ottens, that Township Mapleton Council receive information, a delegation of Stephanie Craig, Tullamore Lavender Company and festival co-host regarding the upcoming 2025 Lavender Bloom Festival at 7595 Wellington County Road 109. And that council consider a request for $1,050 in tourism funding to support the 2025 Lavender Bloom Festival to be held in Mapleton on June 21st, 2025. Any further comments or questions? Councilor Martin?
Just a quick question for you, Mr. Mayor. What's your interpretation of the resolution? Are we considering as part of the considering a request as approving the request?
I think you hit it bang on the head is when you discussed that we should look at this as the whole budget piece. And then once we just discuss that budget piece, whether we want to add it to or not, then we can consider the request through that. Any other questions? Councilor Reid, did you have anything?
Just mimicking Mike's thought there that we maybe put the motion to consider the request through our budgeting option first, and then have this as one of the first ones to be submitted.
Correct. All right. Then I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving along to our next item. Reports from staff. We have a report from the clerk on 9.1 on council vacancy. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just actually included this in the agenda because I wanted to let council members know that there's been a reassuring level of interest from the public with regard to our council vacancy and an encouraging uptake of nomination forms. I don't know if council was anxious or not, but I was. So that's good news.
We don't want the clerk being anxious, so it's good to have that we have a number of people that are interested in the vacancy. I know there was some discussion on Facebook as well, and if council members can continue to push out the information to the public, we might get even more interested and really make the clerk's hair fall out. Any questions for the clerk on this? The resolution moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Martin, that Township Mapleton Council receive for information clerk's report CL 2024-15 regarding a progress update towards filling our council vacancy by appointment and call for applications. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we go to item 9.2, the 2025 municipal budget and multi-year forecast. Patrick? Council's had the opportunity to look over this well-detailed report that the CFO has put together. And Patrick, thank you. It's a different look than we've had over the last number of years and really appreciate. I know when I looked at even the roads of how you put them in so that all the 25s and 26s and 27s are all gathered together instead of spread apart, really made it really easy to read. And I do appreciate what you've done for this budget report. So thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you for the kind words, Mayor Davidson, and it gives me great pleasure this evening to table the Township's 2025 budget report and updated forecasts. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide a high-level overview of this budget. Gives me a unique opportunity to provide some additional context to folks who may be delving into this lengthy document. I'll note this is the formal tabling of the budget. Tonight is not intended for questions or debate or deliberations on the budget, more to deliver it for council and for the community to consume. And I'll get into the schedule of next events. So without further ado, we can jump in. Next slide, Maggie. So tonight I will again just review the schedule where we're at, a quick budget 101 for those that are new to municipal budgeting. Like you said, the report is quite a bit different from what you've seen previously. So just a walkthrough of the setup of the report. Then diving into service level changes, whether that's staffing or non-staffing service level changes and other key drivers in the budget. An update of our long-term capital forecast, a small section on what we're referring to as budget recalibration. And then, of course, looking at the status and forecast for our debt and reserve funds before reaching the bottom line impact. So with the budget schedule, the red date of October 22nd, that's where we are today, which is the formal tabling of the budget. Up until this point, council was provided with a pre-budget overview and we sought direction. We have delivered on the fees and charges bylaw, got approval of that. In the background over the last month and a bit, staff have been working together, refining budget estimates from the previous forecast. The finance team worked together to consolidate that into this document. And after discussions with the CAO and myself, we present the draft budget this evening. Moving forward, we'll have a council workshop next week before presenting to a public open house on November the 18th and ultimately reaching full budget approval by December the 10th. So again, just defining what a budget is. This budget is a plan based on a series of estimates of revenues and resources that are required for us to achieve a desired outcome. The forecast, which is the future years, rely on a number of assumptions and economic indicators to develop projected future financial requirements. Key terms are your base budget. So the base budget is where we are coming into the 2025 year. So essentially it is our 2024 budget. The proposed budget factors in any inflationary impacts, service level changes, or one-time items. And the budget process is governed by numerous pieces of legislation, some of which were noted on this slide. Continuing, what we present to you is a consolidated budget, so not multiple different pieces to look at and bring them together. We bring it together for you. It includes both the operating budget and the capital budget. This slide again details key components of each, but essentially the operating budget is where our staffing costs and materials and supplies go. Capital budget are larger infrastructure investments in roads, bridges, facilities, parks, et cetera. So what is the challenge? The key challenge in a municipal budget is we need to work together as council and staff to rationalize the expenses that are required to meet desired service levels and strategic objectives for the community. We need to maximize the use of sustainable non-tax revenue tools to offset the reliance on property taxes, hence the updates to our fees and charges bylaw, our efforts to secure grant funding outside of the tax base. And ultimately, we need to achieve a reasonable property tax levy that can maintain our operations while ensuring growth and a prosperous future for the community. So the collective mission of the budget process is to help you as decision makers make informed decisions for the provision of services and infrastructure investments while promoting stakeholder participation in the budgeting process. Yes, so this graphic shared last time, I'll share it probably every presentation that we do on the budget. It continues to hold true throughout the budget process, helps describe the difficult tasks that council and staff have before them in building a budget that meets the diverse needs or diverse spectrum of needs throughout the Mapleton community. Our guiding principles were presented, oh, sorry, that's the next slide, Maggie. Our guiding principles were presented at our last meeting. And we have them top of mind throughout building these budgets. So fiscally responsible, engaging the public, modernization and efficiency, growth paying for growth, factoring in inflation, noting where property taxes should be paying for something versus user rate based, and doing all of that under the lens of openness and transparency, which these presentations help to achieve. Key budget pressures, inflation is still present. It is decelerating. It was at 2.40% when we developed the budget projections, service level expectations. Obviously, the expectations from the community are growing at a faster pace than we have the resources to support. So we need to look within our lean staffing model that we have at the township, what can we realistically achieve? External funding programs, almost every meeting over the last few months has spoken of some external funding program that we're seeking grant funding for. That's because the formula-based programs aren't sufficient enough to sustain what we need to, both from an operating perspective and from a long-term infrastructure perspective. And then lastly, the infrastructure deficit. You've seen both sets of asset management plans, which will culminate into one consolidated plan next year, but there is a gap there that we're trying to fill with infrastructure funding. So some further context that can help people that are reading this budget or trying to understand what it's all about. So the next slide. So the budget does include a clear description. This is within the budget report itself of who does what. The province is responsible for establishing laws around assessment, around taxation, around tax classes. MPAC, it's their job to assess properties within our community, whether that's new assessment or reassessment, which we're still waiting on if and when that's going to happen. The county level, so our upper tier government, they're responsible to determine the funding requirements for their services. They're also responsible for developing tax ratios. Tax ratios help to decide what proportion of the total tax requirement is split between commercial, industrial, residential, farm classes, et cetera. And then your role, as council and ours as staff to develop is to establish a property tax levy, $1 amount that is required to deliver all the services to this community. That's your requirement. Staff comes forward with what we feel is a reasonable request for that tax levy amount, and you and council ultimately decide if that's appropriate or not. Having said that, while all those bodies play a role in the process, it's our front counter, which is right outside here, that issues those bills to the community and collects those bills from the community for each of those levels, whether it be the county, the province through the school boards, or the township. Again, some level setting here. So a percentage impact. So this year, for every 1% that we would increase the levy, that would garner an additional $98,000 in funding for us to put into service delivery. The annual impact of that would be approximately $18.49 on the average property within this township. And then I just break it down to every quarter, or 25 basis points is approximately $25,000 or $4.60 to the average resident. When looking back to the who does what, it was noted that Mapleton Council, you only control the Mapleton proportion of the tax bill that goes out to ratepayers. As shown on this graphic, that represents about 36 cents of every dollar collected. The remaining 49 cents goes to the county and 15 cents to the school boards. The graph on the right, that was shared in September. It shows the gap that's been generated by successive councils here, not holding to inflation or a minimum of inflation to increase the levy by. That's created a gap of approximately $750,000 across the entire township that would have been there for us to put towards programs and services had we stuck to inflation. It also shows that since 2016, the Mapleton portion of the average tax bill has increased by approximately 1.19% annually. So it's a good descriptor of how the budget's been maintained at extremely low levy increases over the past several years. Assessment growth is another key piece that factors into the budget. Slide helps folks better understand assessment growth, which has been relatively low for the past several years, averaging around 2.06%. We are making strategic investments in underground infrastructure specifically to expand our capacity to bring on more assessment growth. Assessment growth is a key factor in allowing us to meet our asset management objectives and helps us to work towards long-term financial sustainability by increasing the allocations to our infrastructure reserve funds. So in-year assessment growth in 2024 is on track to build up our transfer to reserve funds. Currently, it's sitting at 3.63%. I won't get into the slide on long-term financial planning strategy. You're well aware of what it is, that it's in place here, but those key terms of sustainability and flexibility and vulnerability, we look at those as we're making decisions or establishing budget estimates for the current year and for the future. We are the recipient of transfer payment agreements from the provincial government that support both operations and annual infrastructure investments. The chart on this graphic, the blue bar is showing OMPF funding annually, which you'll see at its peak back in 2013. It's dropped since then. It's leveled out in recent years, but that funding essentially was intended to make up for the farm tax rate decision from the provincial government. So as you can see, our annual allocation is below $1 million a year. And we don't need to get further into that. Just listen to the radio tomorrow. I think Mayor Davidson has some comments on that. The orange piece is OCIF funding, and this is an important one to point out. When it was originally introduced back in 2015, you could see we got a small portion of it. Those sizable increases specifically within the last 4 years, that's when the township invested in the asset management program here, invested in staff to build the rationalization for how much our need is, how much our infrastructure gap is. That's how we get that OCIF funding in place through the efforts of staff. Outside of these two formula-based programs, we also have had great success. I'll note in Mapleton in securing funding for larger infrastructure investments. So most notably the ICIP Green Program and the Disaster Mitigation Adaptation Fund. Those are huge funding successes through the work of staff here and the leadership of Manny to get those programs bringing funding in so we could move forward with projects in the near term. So we continue to seek alternative funding sources. Right up to today, we're still working on grant applications to secure funding anywhere we can outside of the tax base. So just to wrap up the context piece, the key statistics, you've seen this before, but I'll just note two. The average income, this is 2023 figures, but the average income in Mapleton, you can see was above that of the provincial average, while the net levy per $100,000 of assessment in Mapleton was $3 more than the average across the province. So we are right on par with the middle of the road throughout the province, I guess I'll say. We're not a high tax community. And we do have income within the community that would meet the affordability piece for the tax setup that we have in place. So the budget itself, again, this is just a high level overview of it. Looking forward to the next few meetings to delve into it further, but essentially the new format, we do have introductory pieces through the first 2 chapters. We have a high level overview and an update on where we're at. Then we get into the capital forecast and then a chapter through 5 to 11 for each of the service areas here. Gives a description out the front of what services are provided, some key aspects going into 2025, and then that's followed by the operational budgets for each service area. At the end, we touch on long-term debt and reserves and investments to conclude it. So the consolidated budget, again, operating budget, notes here what's in it, the capital budget notes what's in it, and then finally reserves and reserve funds where we transfer dollars to support long-term infrastructure needs. Key driver within the budget, just the next page, Maggie, is service level changes or our service level changes. They can be driven by a number of factors, whether that's constraints that we have within the budget, growth within the community, community needs that are increasing, or technical advancements. So the four main types of service level changes are noted here. It's either expansion in services, reduction in services, enhancement in existing services, or sometimes pilot programs that we'll try out as a one-time item before molding it in or bringing it into the full budget and long-term forecast. So from a staffing perspective, this budget, the proposed budget includes two service level changes. One would be considered a service enhancement within the area of IT services, while the other is considered a service expansion with the IT or the climate change coordinator. So this slide, and it's within the budget report itself, outlines the need, justified need for these two positions. So obviously over the past few years, the township has started moving in a more modern approach to promote efficiency, bringing in software tools, online building permits and planning applications, online bylaw reporting tools, a lot of increased use of technology. And with that increased use comes an increased reliance on technology. In looking at similar sized municipalities, we do feel confident that Mapleton has reached that point that necessitates the need to bring that service in-house for more reliability within our IT systems to reduce and potentially eliminate downtime. Downtime of any IT product can be very expensive to the community and also frustrating to the residents that we serve. The impact of that is offset through a reduction in the utilization of the existing external service provider. I'll be clear, it doesn't eliminate the need for an external service provider. We will still need external IT consulting support for offsite servers, et cetera. But having an in-house IT manager would allow us to adapt rather quickly to the changing landscape. The climate change coordinator, I won't get into in great detail. That was presented last year. Council was completely on board with that. That position's already been filled, hence the vacancy on council right now. But it's included within the proposed budget as well. Other service level changes in this budget that aren't full-time staffing, annualization of the shared service agreements for the fire management team and for bylaw enforcement. So those costs are now annualized within this budget. There is a provision for healthcare benefits for members of council. Should council determine that that's the path forward they want to take, that's in there. We can get into that further in future meetings. The budget also includes expansions for two key asset management maintenance programs with line painting and dust control under infrastructure services. Other budget drivers that are embedded in there, inflation at 2.4%. That doesn't apply to every budget line. Insurance premiums, working with our insurance broker, are projected at 5% for 2025. Fuel and utilities, a conservative estimate of increasing those by 5% based on current consumption rates. Staffing costs are included with a salary grid adjustment of 2.40%. And then we continue to invest in training and development, professional development for staff and in health and safety for the team. Those are other pieces within the budget that are part of the driver to get us to where we are. In terms of the long-term capital forecast, it's been updated to better align with our asset management program. This chart in front of you depicts the total spending over the next 10 years, which averages around the line in the middle is the average, which is around $7.5 million annually. This does exclude the large investments in water and wastewater infrastructure that are under review right now. The spikes in those two middle years of 2028 and 2029, those represent the potential investments at PMD Arena facility that were discussed as part of the GICB application. So the reason those spikes are there is because that's a significant project. But those blue bars at the bottom, that represents the external grant funding that if we're successful, that's what we would receive. If we're not successful, that project is probably going to need to be reviewed, whether it could move forward. The light blue color, you'll only see it in 2026. That represents new debt service or new debt issuance. That debt's associated with the arena refrigeration system at the PMD Arena. The justification sheet within the package gets into more detail, but that's a $2.35 million spend that would be debt financed over several years. The capital justification sheets have been updated in the package. They do provide a little more clarity as to the specifics of the projects themselves, as well as from my side and from finance's side, not just the cost, but where that cost is being funded from to make sure we have sufficient funding in place to move forward with all of the projects. So you'll see those for each of the first 3 years of the 10-year capital forecast. There's a justification sheet for all of them. I don't feel it's necessary for years 4 to 10, as those projects are really just a forecast that's subject to change. So it'll always be 3 years of sheets moving forward. So as noted within the report, the proposed budget allows us to recalibrate a number of operating budget lines. They'll now better reflect the spending requirements within each service area, while also eliminating a reliance upon non-sustainable revenue streams. Non-sustainable are items like increasing the amount of investment income in the budget based on the current returns we're getting. That's not something the township we should be expecting. We shouldn't rely on non-sustainable revenue streams to meet our budget. So the dip that you're seeing, a small dip that you're seeing on that slide for the transfer to reserves, as noted, the assessment growth is intended to build that up. It will definitely exceed the budget transfer from 2024 and keep us working towards long-term financial sustainability and flexibility. So prior to getting to the bottom line, it's important to note the status of debt and reserve funds. So debt, as you can see in this graphic, is trending downwards over the next several years. Again, I'll note this is levy funded debt. This is not investments in water and wastewater infrastructure. That's separate from this. But debt is definitely at a manageable level, excluding water and wastewater investments. And the next slide, Maggie, reserve funds are moving in the opposite direction. Reserve funds are moving up. So that does show that we're making the transfers and gradually increasing those transfers to get our reserves at a sustainable level for our asset management programs. So to wrap up with the next slide, that's really small, but we'll read it out to you. So the budget does meet the projection for 2025 with a levy adjustment of 3.55%. From a bottom line perspective, that increase would result in an additional $18 per $100,000 of assessment, moving from $509 per $100,000 to $527 per $100,000. From a dollar impact on the average residential property, currently it's at $1,849. It would increase by $65 a year to $1,914, an extremely reasonable levy adjustment, given the costs of services that we provide as a township, and does meet the forecast of what was expected. Overall, the levy would total $10.2 million in 2025 and increasing up to $11.4 million within the forecast period, but the forecast is obviously subject to annual reviews. The last slide, and this is the last page of the budget report. None of this is possible without the team we have in place here. The team of just extremely effective and hardworking people that we have in the finance team. We're very fortunate in Mapleton to have the team that we have in place, and also the supportive leadership group and collaboration that's happening across departments. Budgets can't come together in this short of a time period since I've been here without that. So my sincere gratitude to everyone there. And lastly, to you as council for your commitment in our team and your trust in that we're bringing forward a budget that serves the needs of the community. So with that, that's the tabling of the budget, and we look forward to our next discussion, which will be at our workshop next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Resolution I have here, Council, is moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Martin, that Township Mapleton Council receive for information Finance Report FIN 2024-26 regarding the tabling of the 2025 municipal budget and multi-year forecast. And as our Finance Director has said, this is a tabling of the budget. Next week, we do have our many long hours of discussion about the budget with all your questions and comments then, and certainly get into the nitty-gritty of it next week. So thank you so much, Patrick, for your presentation. Any comments right now from council members? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next thing you know, we have 9.31 and we're doing an open fires bylaw. Chief, you're presenting a new bylaw for us on open fires. Welcome.
I did not print this off because I'm environmentally friendly, so I'm going to try and read it from my computer. So, yes, what we've endeavored to do with this new bylaw is to, first of all, align the three bylaws between Minto, Mapleton, and Wellington North. But also in review of the bylaws, we have ascertained that we did need to update the burn bylaw in Mapleton. The one in Mapleton was fairly old and needed to be updated to reflect the more modern times of burning when you have your open air burns. Some of the changes you're going to see in it is instead of having your permit valid for 1 week, it's going to be valid for a month, and you still have to let us know what you're burning. The distances between the burns and different structures, and that has been changed to make sure they align and it's safe. But the biggest change that you see in Mapleton is a change to what you're allowed to burn, and also some restrictions on time of the burn. If there's winds above 10 kilometers an hour, we can say no burning. And also with humidity, if there's high humidity, burn permits will be stopped, because with high humidity, the smoke doesn't go anywhere and it causes a lot of health problems to people around. So we believe this is a relevant thing to do to bring it in to different environmental rules and that too, that we do not burn plastics or tires or anything like that. Those stuff can go to the landfill and be treated appropriately. You're only burning clean wood or clean materials that are not harmful to the environment. So, and the final change that I'll talk about is we're moving to an online burn permit software system, which is going to be, it's similar to what you have now where you can go onto the website and do that. But what it is it will help us create better data and better reports for council and for us to have about how many burn permits we issue in a year, how many each property has, what they burned. But it also give our firefighters the ability that on the tablets that they're going to have in their trucks, they will be able to have that information right in their truck. So they'll be able to see that there's a burn permit at a certain place and they know that they're going there, and they still have to go and attend to make sure it's okay, but at least they'll know that that person took out a valid burn permit and where they're going. So that's going to be huge information for us. But there will be more to come on that once we get the software implemented and move forward. So this is just an information for you to receive any feedback from the burn bylaw, and then I believe at a future council meeting, we'll bring the actual bylaw back for passing and that. And if passed, it will be effective January 1st, as well as the other two municipalities. But that will also give us time to send out some information to all the residents of Mapleton to let them know there's been some changes to the burn bylaw and what that entails. So that'll give us times for education of the public. So, yeah.
Thank you, Chief Harrell. You got questions for Chief Harrell on this report? Not seeing any questions. Nothing from Amanda. Okay. Thank you, Chief. I found it to be very good to have this update. I think it's been 10 years from the last update, and changing it to a month instead of a week. Very important. I do have one question for you, Chief, and you talked about, you know, if the humidity is too high or the wind is over 10 kilometers per hour. How do these people that have the burn permit for a month know? Is there a responsibility to know that they can't burn at that point in time, or do we contact them and say you can't burn?
That's a great question, Mr. Mayor. So it will be, the onus will be on the homeowner to know. It's through Environment Canada, and it says if the wind's above 10 kilometers an hour and blowing, you know, smoke around, you have to, you're not allowed to burn. And the same thing if Environment Canada says the humidity, or the weather network, whatever you may follow, says the humidity is a certain level, it's above our bylaw, it'll be up to them to not burn. The other great thing of our software is what we will be able to do is once we get everybody on the software, we'll be able to send an alert through the software to say, just a heads up, it's 90% humidity today. All burn permits are canceled as of today. So we'll be able to communicate with them through that as well. And one thing I failed to mention when I just remembered is anybody that does not have access to a computer or the internet will still be able to call the municipal office, and our staff will be able to log on through the burn permit software and register it for them. So that will still function, will still be there, but at least it'll be through the software. So.
Thank you, Chief, and certainly good that we have that ability that if someone can't go online, that they're able still to contact the office and get that done. But it still goes into the software, so our team knows in their trucks what's going on. and certainly appreciate your comments on the wind and all the rest. And I think every one of us has probably driven by a burn before where the winds are a little bit too high and it's blowing across the road and it's like going through fog at times. So do appreciate the update on this burn permit. Thank you, sir. Resolution here moved by myself, by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Ottens, that the Township Mapleton Council receive for information Fire Department Report FIR 2024-03 regarding open air burning, and that council provide comment and input on the attached proposed draft open fires bylaw anticipated to be effective January 1st, 2025, which would concurrently repeal the attached present Mapleton open air bylaw of 2015-067 as attached. Any more comments or questions at this point? I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Next up, we do have another report that the Chief's bringing with us. And this is on recruitment update. Chief?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Larry for getting these reports on last minute for me. It was perfect timing to come and just do more or less 3 reports for the price of 1 for council. Recruitment update is just a quick update, but we have closed our recruitment and we are starting this week with interviews. Good news is for Drayton Station, we received over 30 applicants. And for the Moorfield Station, we received 15 applicants. So fantastic recruitment. Thank you to all the firefighters who put signs on their lawn and the mailers and everything else that we went out to really target it. But it was excellent the way the community's responded. So kind of want to say thank you to the community as well to coming out and responding that way, and a lot of positive feedback that way. So that worked out extremely well. Also, the other part of this report is we're starting with the new branding of the fire department. One of the things we noticed and we spoke to the CAO was we have 3 different logos that are appearing on our trucks in every which way, and it makes it very difficult to brand a fire department. And I know branding of a fire department seems kind of weird, but we want to have one consistent logo that's in the community that when people see the logo, they can respect and say, that's the fire department. That's, you know, I must remember to change my smoke alarms because I see that logo every time and they're going to remind me. And it's a consistently branding thing that we can put out there. It's also important for us to have one logo for the fire department that when we work with different companies and different enterprises, we can say, for example, John Deere is a proud partner of Mapleton Fire because they donated money to us, and we can put their logo with our logo, and our logo is well known in the community and out and about. And we've had some really good success with this in previous places. And so that was one of the first things we want to start with. So we engaged the firefighters, we talked to them, we Khalees to help design this, and then she worked with a cresting company to finalize it. But then we worked with the firefighters to make sure they were on board, and we got very, very positive comments back from the firefighters. We ran it through the CAO's office, and he was happy with it. So we're ready to, as of today, show you and launch it that this is the new logo for Mapleton Fire Rescue. And we're going to work at, over the years, it's not going to be a huge budget thing, but over the years, we're going to work at standardizing our logo and making sure that everything is consistently based off of one logo and not a bunch of logos. Because, as I said, it's very important in the fire service that we are a business at the end of the day, and we have to brand our logo out there in the community as one consistent thing. So we're really excited to get this going, and you're going to see this hopefully more and more out in the community, and this is what we're going to push forward with. So
Thank you, Chief. And that is one sharp looking patch right there. And that's, you know, we talk about branding. We do that here at the township, or branding Mapleton. You know, we're talking about that with our signage and everything we do in our trails. Absolutely need to be branding our fire department as well. And that patch is incredible. And I'm glad that the firefighters that we have endorsed this as well, because it's very important for them to love the patch as well. Not just us here, but they have to love it. And I think that's very smart looking patch. And as for the recruitment, so good to have. I saw those signs in the community. I wanted a sign, but you know, I wasn't given one. But just the matter of fact that we had so many people want to be on the fire department, that is amazing. And really, really happy with our community members that have stepped up, the number of them. And whether they make it or not, I just want to say thank you on behalf of council, on behalf of our residents of the township, for volunteering to actually volunteer. And that's very important that we have those. Members of council, any comments or questions for the chief? Go ahead, Councilor Ottens.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Of those applicants, it's great that there's that many. That's amazing. How many would you be looking to actually have join the department?
That's a great question. We're still trying to ascertain that with pending retirements and that of how many we're gonna need. So we're gonna interview and then come up with a list that we're ready to go ahead with, so that with some of the possible pending retirements on that we have people ready to go. Because we have to put them in the recruit class for the most part, unless they come fully qualified to us. It takes about 6 to 8 months to get everybody certified now. So we're gonna hopefully get a list, and it might be, to the mayor's point, it might be not this time, but you know, there's a recruit class in January and then there's another one in July usually in the county. So it might not be now, but it'll be later, and we can have that list and keep working off that and keep them engaged, that they want to stay interested in the department, and we can do that. So it's a real circumventing your question, but I don't have hard numbers exactly how many we're going to do at each station until we get this conversation done about some pending retirements.
Other questions? Councillor Reed.
Through you, Mayor, I just have one quick one. Do we know of these 30 and 14 or 15 applicants? Are any of them people who've applied and worked for the department before, or are they all new applicants?
They are a combination of both, new applicants and people that have worked for the department before or applied to the department before and then not been successful. So there's a combination of all of that.
Great, thank you.
All right, anything further? Do you have the resolution here? Moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Martin, that Township Mapleton Council receive for information Fire Department Report FIR 2024-04 regarding Fire Department branding and recruitment update, and that council support in principle the new proposed branding for Mapleton Fire. All in favor? That's carried. Next up, we have Public Works Department report on pre-servicing agreement with Glenavalid subdivision Phase 2, Stage 4. Jamie.
Thank you, Mayor Davison. This agreement between the township and Glenavalin Developments is a piece of land up on Bedell and in Ridgeview that was intended to be a private development with privately owned roads. Since then, the developer has decided to not go that direction and make these municipal roads, which makes Public Works quite happy. So this is just part of the subdivision agreement to speed it up a little bit and allow them to start on that. I would refer to it as Block 90, start into that and getting the infrastructure in the ground. So they're still working on the approvals for that. We're working with RJ Burnside and Stantec and making sure that meets all the municipal standards for the roads and all the infrastructure. So this is just to allow them to move forward. This won't be executed until all the approvals, third-party review have been completed, and then we'll execute this agreement.
Thank you. The resolution I have here is moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Ottens, that Township Mapleton Council receive Public Works Report PW 2024-18 as information and direct staff to execute the pre-servicing agreement in the same form or substantially in the same form with a developer for Phase 2, Stage 4 subdivision with the developer Glenavalid Development Corporation. Questions then? If any at all? Don't see any. I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Moving right along. Item number 12. Correspondence for council's information. We do have 6 of them on there. We have the first one there, Wellington County Award Scholarships and Bursaries announcement. If you notice on their council, there's no one there from the Township of Mapleton. So next time this comes around, we're going to do a little bit better at promoting this in the school around us to get those applicants. There's actually no one from Mapleton applied this year. That's why you don't see anybody on there. And we have a one here from 12.5, which is Good Roads. And they're talking about the establishment of Ontario Rural Road Safety Program. I hope council read that. I think that's a piece that we might want to consider to support. I open up for council's discussion. Any items council wants to discuss there? Counselor Reed?
I was looking at, I believe we've seen it before, but 12.3, the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism. There's an opportunity there for some Ontario Volunteer Service Awards.
Yes.
I was wondering if we know of anyone that we'd want to submit that for, or should we consider looking into that?
Certainly something we consider looking into. The timeline is short at this point. Maybe it's something we would have to consider if we can't do it this year, then maybe make sure we have a note of that for next year.
Sounds good.
Councilor Ottens, do you have any comments? There's something, nothing? Okay. If there's nothing further, we'll continue moving. Okay. Okay, we have item number 15.1, which is the first item up here in other business, and this is a notice of motion presented by Councillor Reed. So Councillor Reed, you had a notice of motion that you presented at last council meeting, and please present now.
Thank you, Mayor. It was a motion that I thought was important for our township's transparency. Going forward, we as council, we're all busy. We all have many different hats we wear on a daily basis and commitments, and knowing when things are happening to me is super important because I want to always attend where I can. And I try really hard to make sure that I do that, as does everyone around the Horseshoe. So for transparency, what we're attending, things we're going to, kind of what the protocols would be. And I mean, the City of Brampton protocol is a little more higher than what our Rule 1 would be, obviously, but I really think it's important knowing where we're all going and what we're doing going forward.
Thank you. I'll just remind council by reading the resolution. It's moved by Councillor Reed, second by Councillor Martin, that Township of Mapleton Council direct staff through the CAO to prepare a report and compose a draft civics events protocol policy in the same vein as the attached City of Brampton one, but suitable for a rural lower tier municipality such as the Township of Mapleton, which would outline and formalize council members' roles, practice, etiquette, decorum, attendance, and invitations to future events such as fall fairs, celebrations, parades, business openings, greeting visiting dignitaries, including business leaders, sports persons, politicians, etc. So I open this up for discussion for council on this motion. Councillor Reed has presented. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Ottens.
Yes, through you, Mayor. Yeah, I support this motion. I agree it should be very concise and simple, given that we're much smaller than Brampton. We don't need this multi-page document, but I do think it's important that all of council is included when these sorts of things happen, and or at least are informed of, so that we have options of attending and just participating. Because we represent, all of us are elected to represent. So it's nice that all of us have the opportunity to be present.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I would agree. I think it can be probably a relatively simple, calendar invites, those types of things are pretty effective for me anyway. I do get annoyed when I find out after the fact about stuff, right? And that's not finger pointing at anybody. It's just like the awareness, working Monday to Friday, obviously cramps my style as far as midweek stuff goes, but just the awareness, it would be a great thing, I think, for us. So.
Okay. Any further discussion? I'll call a question. All in favor? That's carried. Moving on to the next item I have here is item 15.2. And this is something you don't have in your agenda that we needed to add in, council. It has something to do with the Legion and the parade. And I'll just read the resolution here, moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Martin, that Township Mapleton Council received for information a letter from Mary Miller, Royal Canadian Legion Branch 416, dated October 11th, 2024, regarding a request for council's expression of support for their annual Remembrance Day Parade on Monday, November 11th, 2024. And the Township Mapleton Council expresses their continued sincere support for this important annual event. And further, the council direct the clerk to respond to the president, Mary Miller, with a letter of resolution of support and aid of their County of Wellington Special Events Permit process. Mr. Clerk, did you want to comment on this at all?
Just thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing this to come up tonight. The attached letter from the Legion from Mrs. Miller dated October 11th, but our reception received it October 18th. So our only choice was to get it done this week because it certainly wouldn't be, we wouldn't have heard it until after the Remembrance Day. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. Any comments from council? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. We don't have a closed session, so we'll just go right into the confirmatory bylaw. Moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Martin, that the bylaw number 2024-050 being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of the council of the corporation of the township of Mapleton be here read by a first, second, and third time, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with a corporate seal. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, and we're adjourned from the council meeting at 5:17 PM.